Hello, welcome to the Humboldt Unitarian Universalist Virtual Fellowship. My name is Scarlett Tripsmith, and I will be your technical liaison for today. And I just want to say that we are so pleased to see so many new faces in here today, as well as so many old faces. And we're really so joyous to be joined together in this space today. Just a couple housekeeping things for today. For the duration of the service, if you could please keep your mics muted just to help things run more smoothly. There will be time at the end of the service if you have questions or comments or just want to chat with your friends. There will be time at the end for that, for our virtual coffee hour. If you are comfortable, please feel free to share your video feed. We love seeing your faces in our congregation. And if you want to be able to access all of the faces in our congregation, if you scroll up to the top of your screen, there should be a box grid. And if you click on that, it should say gallery view. And then you should be able to see everyone in our constituency today. So that should be fun. Today, we also have our Joys, Sorrows, and Celebrations, which is a ritual that we do every Sunday where if you would like to share with us in our congregation to hold space for you, if you have a joy you'd like to celebrate or a sorrow that you just need some space to be held for, we will put a pebble in our pool of wishes for you. And today we will be utilizing the chat function to do that. So if you want to send those to Bonnie McGregor via the chat, then we can have that done at the time of the ritual. And without further ado, with my very honored blessing, I would like to introduce Bonnie McGregor to represent our aspiration and chalice lighting.
Actually, Scarlett, I'm going to step in because I think we'll begin here with a meditation and then move on to the chalice lighting. So then just as we're arriving together in this space, I'd like to invite us to engage a conscious practice of arriving. Just taking a moment, if you like, you can allow your eyes to close if that's comfortable for you. Just supporting that sense of our energy, attention, awareness coming in. Feeling the weight of your body against your seat. That quality of ground. Feeling the support of earth. Bringing your attention to your spine or backbone. Allowing your spine to be extended in a relaxed way. Being upright. And even bringing our awareness to the space behind us for a moment. We're a very forward movement oriented culture. Can gain some equanimity and balance. Being aware of our backfield. Aware of the strength in our spine. And then feeling or noticing your breath deep within your body. Noticing the sensation of breath as it comes in through your nose down your throat, filling your lungs and chest. Allowing your shoulders to soften and drop. Feeling your heart center open. Our senses are awake and perceiving, aware of the breath, and also noticing sound, the quality of light on this beautiful morning, the texture of clothing or skin beneath our hands. And then bringing your awareness to your heart center and just noticing the feeling tone, the energy or emotion that might be present with you this morning. Allowing your in breath to touch your heart space with tenderness and care. Extending a quality of welcome and allowing. Everything within us and around us, just as it is. And I'll share a small poem by Mark Nepo, Adrift. Everything is beautiful, and I am so sad. This is how the heart makes a duet of wonder and grief. The light spraying through the lace of the fern is as delicate as the fibers of memory, forming their web around the knot in my throat. The breeze makes the birds move from branch to branch, as this ache makes me look for those I've lost in the next room, in the next song, in the laugh of the next stranger. In the very center, under it all, what we have that no one can take away, and all that we have lost face each other. It is there that I'm adrift, feeling punctured by a holiness that exists inside of everything. I am so sad, and everything is beautiful. I invite us to recognize and to feel that we are sharing a space together here this morning, a space of heart, of welcome and compassion. We are here together as community. And then I pass the program to Bonnie for the chalice lighting.
Thank you, Lama Choyang. Would you sound a bell to
Yes.
settle to be a transition to me and
Yes,
to
I
all
will.
of us in the next part of the program?
Mhm.
Thank you so much for bringing us all here and now. And I want to extend my own welcome to all of you, to the friends and members of the Humboldt Unitarian Universalist Fellowship and the extended community that Lama Choyang also shares in beloved community. And for those of you who might be new to Unitarian Universalism, let me just say that we draw on the wisdom of all spiritual traditions from all the peoples. And many of us are engaged in the practices of Buddhism. So we are particularly feel blessed to have Lama Choyang and all of you amongst us. One of our traditions and a pretty good expression of who we are as Unitarian Universalists is found in our aspiration. And so you're welcome to join us as we now renew our aspiration. May love be the spirit of this fellowship. May the quest for truth be its sacrament and service be its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, and to help one another in fellowship. This is our aspiration. Each Sunday, we light a chalice as a symbol for Unitarian Universalists of our faith in the healing power of what the chalice holds and the renewal of the spirit, which is the flame within the chalice. So, Cynthia, will you light the chalice? So I light the chalice with these words from Reverend Gretchen Haley. She entitles it Surrender to Life. Give up the fight for some other moment, some other life than here and now. Give up the longing for some other world, the wishing for some other choices to make, other songs to sing, other bodies, other ages, other countries, other stakes. Purge the past and forgive the future, for each comes too soon. Surrender only to this life, this day, this hour, not because it does not constantly break your heart, but because it also beckons with beauty, startles with delight. If only we keep waking up. This is the gift we have been given. These body clothes, this heartbreak, this pulse, this breath, this light, these friends, this hope. Here we remember ourselves, all a part of it all, giving thanks together. Now I'd like to invite you to sing along to our first song. It's entitled, "We Shall Be Known by the Company We Keep." Now, don't worry, because your mics are muted, and so we can't hear, because if we had everybody singing, as you know by now from Zoom, it would be a cacophony. But it's a wonderful video that comes from the Unitarian Universalists You the Vote campaign, which I actually didn't know when I chose the song. So it's lovely to sing the wonderful words with all your heart, and imagine we're all singing, and in the distance between, we're creating this wonderful energy. So we shall be known.
Sorry, having a couple technical difficulties here.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle around to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive in this great turning. We shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well.
So as we come back into our own spaces, we reassemble here. Let's get ready to receive the joys and sorrows and celebrations that you have sent to me in the chat. I will read them as I drop a pebble in the bowl of water, symbolizing the ripples that spread out from all of us to those who have shared these thoughts. This is a regular part of our Sunday services, and I welcome any and all of you to participate. If you'll just a minute, I'm somewhat challenged by all this new technology, but I think I can find the joys and sorrows. Okay. This is for Judy. This is from Jenny Hansen. This is for Judy, my friend of 25 years, whose life has gone off the rails, so that she is unwillingly living in sheltered housing. From Pat and Valerie, please place a pebble for thoughts and prayers for Ursula's son, Stan, who is recovering from heart surgery. This is from Sue Mossman. In gratitude for those 14,000 firefighters who are risking their lives to save lives. We are remembering these in our fellowship who have families, those in our fellowship who have families who reside near the fires all over the West Coast. From Chip Sharp, heavy heart from reading another front page article in today's Times Standard about murdered and missing women, girls, and two-spirit people. From Sina, next week is the last Black Lives Matter demonstration at the 4th and V in Eureka. We still need some sign holders to sign up with Sylvia Shaw. So this is a stone of gratitude for all who have participated, and somewhat of sorrow for all that is left undone. From Steve Sitong, many of us join you, Steve, thinking of Anne King today. This is from Montana and Libby, sending love to all of the teachers who are starting school this week in a new virtual environment, and all of the parents and caregivers who are providing at-home support. From Bertie Welty, just a minute, that was a different one. Okay, from Kate McLean. Tom Lewis was going to share this concern or sorrow, but I don't see him present now. Anna Mae Botley was taken to St. Joseph's Hospital Saturday. Saturday afternoon after she collapsed in her home. Tom knows more of the details. Doesn't take much these days, I'm sorry. From Scarlett, sorrow and a joy, family and friends being evacuated because of the fires. But my little sister and stepmom are safe up here in Arcata, and I feel that I can finally help. It's a good feeling. From Reverend Jamal Tharp. Prayers for all the families who are struggling with not enough resources, whether it be the internet, shelter, food, or respite care. I know there are many left in our hearts, or perhaps you sent some. I'm getting a scrolling and a repeat, so I'm not going to keep trying to do that. But as always, I drop a pebble for those joys and sorrows in our hearts and left unspoken today. So Lama Choyang will now give us a reading. So I'd like to share these words of David White, a selection from his writing on courage in his book, Consolations, the solace, nourishment, and underlying meaning of everyday words. And actually, I'd just like to pause and really take in what Bonnie has shared and just the immediacy of what so many of us are up against and feeling, our concerns, our grief, our fears. And so actually may these words directly speak into our hearts. Courage is a word that tempts us to think outwardly, to run bravely against opposing fire, to do something under besieging circumstance. But a look at its linguistic origins is to look in a more interior direction and toward its original template, the old Norman French corps or heart. Courage is the measure of our heartfelt participation with life, with another, with a community, a work, a future. To be courageous is not necessarily to go anywhere or do anything, except to make conscious those things we already feel deeply, and then to live through the unending vulnerabilities of those consequences. To be courageous is to seat our feelings deeply in the body and in the world, to live up to and into the necessities of relationships that often already exist, with things we find we already care deeply about, with a person, a future, a possibility in society, or with an unknown that begs us on and always has begged us on. To be courageous is to stay close to the way we are made. The French philosopher Camus used to tell himself to live to the point of tears as an invitation to the deep privilege of belonging and the way belonging affects us, shapes us, and breaks our heart at a fundamental level. It is a fundamental dynamic of human incarnation to be moved by what we feel, as if surprised by the actuality and privilege of love and affection and its possible loss.
Courage is what love feels like when tested by the simple, everyday necessities of being alive. From the inside, it can feel like confusion. Only slowly do we learn what we really care about and allow our outer life to be realigned in that gravitational pull. With maturity, that robust vulnerability comes to feel like the only necessary way forward, the only real invitation, and the surest, safest ground from which to step. On the inside, we come to know who and what and how we love and what we can do to deepen that love. Only from the outside and only by looking back does it look like courage. So then I believe we go to the offertory with Annette.
I would just, before Annette plays, I would just remind you that sustaining our fellowship is always a communal effort, and we all contribute in many ways. So we pause in each service to give everyone a chance to contribute what financial gifts that you can as we listen to this precious gift of Annette's beautiful talent and sharing of music.
So am I unmuted? Let me make sure. Okay, I am unmuted. Good morning. Earlier this morning, I actually had another commitment. Fortunately, it was on mountain time, so it began at 8. I have two dear friends who are in the chaplaincy program through Upaya, Roshi Joan Halifax's Zen Center in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I've had the privilege of being a spiritual mentor for these friends So I've met with them each via Zoom over the past year and a half of their program. And in March, I had a ticket to fly to Santa Fe to witness them receiving their vows. But of course, that didn't happen. And so this morning, there was a beautiful Jukai ceremony, the giving and receiving of vows that I was able to witness on Zoom. And it was profound. And I mention that now because that ceremony, in a sense, feels like the very center of our gathering this morning. How does each of us land firmly on the ground of our own commitments to ourselves, to others, and to our world? And how can we support ourselves and each other on this shared journey of offering and service? Sensei Alan Sanaki spoke in the ceremony and mentioned how the vows these students were receiving were rooted in the precepts of awakened being. In the Buddhist tradition, the Bodhi, awakened, Sattva, being, the Bodhisattva precepts that are an instruction on how we might relate to each other and to ourselves. And he pointed to how making clear commitments, in their context, taking vows, allow us to return to the principles we wish to live by over and over again. As I was preparing my talk in these recent weeks, I reflected on how this moment we're sharing today falls in the Jewish calendar in the month of Elul, the month which precedes the high holidays, Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, and then the most sacred day in the Jewish calendar, Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement or at one-ment. This month of Elul is a time of reflection, considering the ways in which we have strayed from our deepest values and commitments, the ways in which we may have created harm, and how we might practice teshuvah, the practice of returning to ourselves, coming back into alignment with our hearts, with what we know to be true, engaging the practice of repair directly and specifically with others in our lives. And during the high holidays, engaging this practice of return, reconnection as community. My own teacher within my Buddhist tradition has also represented our path as the way of remembering and forgetting. We remember, we forget, and then we reconnect, we realign, or as the Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach would say, we return to the land of our soul. So different themes within this topic today of staying the course, of exploring ways to find stamina and resource to engage our commitment of presence and responsiveness. Different themes have emerged for me, and they center around this practice of remaining true to ourselves. So this practice evokes qualities of loyalty and steadfastness in circumstances of great difficulty. We are certainly, as Joanna Macy would say, in the time of unraveling. Really, it seems on almost every dimension of our shared world and experience. Francis Weller speaks of how sorrow, we might also say hardship and challenge, are sustained notes in the song of being human. And he writes of how we might engage in apprenticeship with sorrow, maintaining a fidelity to that apprenticeship. The word fidelity, remaining true to, it has a 19th century quality, along with words, virtue, and humility that deeply resonate for me. And now I'm going to take a moment to be dangerously nonlinear. I invite you to drop out of your analytic thinking mind and listen from your hearts to the words of wise souls that speak into this time, this moment, offer counsel and solace to us. I will offer their words and then pause, letting them ripple through your hearts and minds. My comments further in the morning will engage and emerge from these reflections. We entrust ourselves to this moment. We trust life just as it is. There's a clear intention and simultaneously a letting go. Roshi Joan Halifax. Our vows, our actions, how we live, what we care about, who we care for matters. It's Václav Havel. And then these lines from an interview Krista Tippett shared with the remarkable Vietnamese American poet, Ocean Vuong. He says, I want to take off the shoes of my voice, make my speech deliberate, share my words with care, and enter a sacred space. When the apocalypse comes, what will you put in the vessel for the future? As much destruction and violence as there has always been, there has also been love and beauty simultaneously. They don't cancel each other out as independent truths. You look at stratified rock. We're just one line, one thin little strip. What are you going to say into the world? We will die. How do we lead a life worthy of our breath? Our society, our culture in this country, it throws us out of ourselves. We can go through our whole lives being thrown out of ourselves and ultimately leave ourselves behind. Thinking about death helps me center myself. It nurtures my mental health. This varied expression I've shared just now suggests deep qualities of listening and presence, an experience of being in contact with self and other and world through our attention, our caring, and our honoring. This is such an overwhelming moment with wildfires consuming Northern California, the ongoing impact of COVID-19, uncertainty, isolation, fear, economic upheaval, the visceral awareness for so many of us of racial inequity and injustice, the immediate presence of climate change in these extreme events of fire, drought, our melting glaciers, warming oceans, accelerating extinctions and species loss, our democracy under threat, our country divided. What is possible for each of us in this time? Roshi Joan Halifax said that she'd like to post just 2 words above the entrance to their Dharma community. Show up. And yet, how do we do that with the gathered resource of our presence, our awakened hearts and open minds? I always come back to a line from David White. This line, start close in, start close in. My hand touches my own heart. What is true for me? Where do I source? What matters most to me? What are my most deeply held values and commitments? What worldview, what faith anchors me? Where do I go for solace and comfort? It is a practice to connect with ourselves and come into some relationship with how we ground ourselves in this world, how we orient where we receive nourishment. As the poet Padraig Otwama writes, we must learn to find our way home in ourselves and to cultivate an interior life as primary resource. Engaging this practice, I'd like to take just a moment and ask all of us to pause and reflect on our deeply held values. What values are important to you? So we're going to pause and take a moment and reflect together. And then I invite you to enter maybe 2 or 3 words into the chat box. Just, you can, just to everyone. And then Bonnie is going to share those words, a selection of them with all of us. So I'm just pausing for a moment, and please, you find the chat icon either at the bottom of your screen or perhaps the bottom right. Just if you're moved, you might enter 1 or 2 or 3 words, just dropping into your heart and connecting with a sense of your values.
Truth, kindness, grace, caring for others, action, felt spacious connection, truth listening, compassion, true to myself, hugs, equality, kindness, equanimity, family, caring, courage, gratitude, creativity, true kindness. Kindness comes up many times.
Thank you, Bonnie. I know the list goes on, and I'd like to invite us all to just notice what it feels like to take in this list, to be touched by the field, the collective field of these shared values. In a training that I participated in with Roshi Joan, she's very present today. I think I was just in her presence an hour ago. She pointed out, of course, that we all have values and that we engage our values with some consciousness and intention at different moments in our lives, but that we are largely not in a conscious relationship with our values. And so then they are not a part of our working memory, our operational memory, and therefore not available to us as resource or inspiration. It's meaningful to consciously reflect on our values and allow them to orient and inspire us, to actively inform how we move in the world. As David White wrote in his piece on courage that I shared earlier, to be courageous is not necessarily to go anywhere or do anything, except to make conscious those things we already feel deeply, and then to live through the unending vulnerabilities of those consequences. To be courageous is to seat our feelings deeply in the body and in the world, to live up to and into the necessities of relationships that often already exist. To be courageous is to stay close to the way we are made. So, in our commitment then to stay the course, to deepen our stamina, to live in the ongoing uncertainties of this time, then there's something about contacting and sourcing some essential part of ourselves, the way we are made, some essential dimension of our humanness. Someone once asked the anthropologist Margaret Mead what she considered to be the first evidence of civilization, and she responded, a human femur with a healed fracture wound found in an archaeological site 15,000 years ago. She didn't mention early tools or ritual implements or signs of early communal self-governance. She points out that for a person to survive a broken femur, that person had to have been cared for long enough for that bone to heal. Others must have provided shelter, protection, and sustenance over an extended period of time for this kind of healing to be possible. It's very touching to me that this great anthropologist, Margaret Mead, suggests that the first indication of human civilization is care over time for one who is broken and in need, as evidenced through a fractured thigh bone that was healed. You know, it's interesting. I actually noticed speakers at the Democratic National Convention leaning into the same awareness, speaking to an inherent faith in our decency, our care for one another, our wish to be part of creating something better for each other and for our country. Spiritual traditions raise up this vision of being true to some deeper sense of who we are, of our potential, our essence or true nature. In the Buddhist tradition, there are vows associated with this commitment or intention, both to be true to who we are in the deepest sense, and as an expression of this truth, our essence nature, God within ourselves, our divinity, to offer our lives in response to the suffering of others. At the conclusion of the ceremony this morning, they said if people were actually present, then those who had taken these vows would stand in the middle of a circle, and the teacher and the residential Sangha would circle them, repeating these lines. Buddha recognizes Buddha. Buddha bows to Buddha. Buddha recognizes Buddha. Buddha bows to Buddha. They repeated these lines 9 times and exchanged or offered bows to each other. Would that we could all encounter each other with this same sense of reverence, to receive and honor each other in this way. Bernie Glassman describes the embodiment of compassion Kannon in the Japanese tradition, who worked ceaselessly to liberate beings from realms of suffering. And yet, when she would look again, there were always more beings arriving to be free, more beings in states of suffering. They were limitless. In her despair, she literally broke into pieces. And then she formed again with 1,000 arms to respond to the suffering of beings. He says each of us is an arm of Kannon. Like she was, we're also overwhelmed. But when we realize that the millions of pieces are all of us operating as one, then there's no problem. The reason we get overwhelmed is that we're attached to a certain result or that we want to achieve a certain goal. If we weren't attached, we wouldn't be overwhelmed. It's endless. And we just take one step after the next. It's an endless task. Yes, it is overwhelming, he says. That's why we never stop doing it. Martin Luther King and then John Lewis, both of them spoke of the long arc of justice. And now Resmaa Menakem and other racial justice activists also acknowledge that the work of dissolving white body supremacy culture is one of many generations. And at the same time, because everything is interdependent and connected, nothing is small, trivial, or inconsequential. Roshi Burney tells a beautiful story of one of his students, Claude Anchin Thomas, who's a member of his Zen Peacemaker Order, a man who had been a helicopter gunman in Vietnam and killed hundreds of people. As part of Claude's healing journey, he walked from Auschwitz to Vietnam over many months. I'm going to summarize this story. I realize we're running a bit late, so I'm going to essentialize this beautiful story. So at the outset of Claude's journey, Roshi Glassman offered him his Zen peacemaker vows that these dear friends received this morning outside the crematoriums in Auschwitz. And as part of that ceremony, as a gift, he gave to Claude a small mala or rosary, a gift of beads that Claude could use to support his practice and wear around his wrist on this journey. A month later, Claude and his small group found themselves in Bosnia. And the small group were other peace activists also committed to walking through war-torn countries. And they were often stopped by soldiers who would prevent them from moving in one direction or another. And Claude shared that his companions in this walk would avoid connecting with these soldiers. They thought the soldiers were bad, and they definitely thought their guns were bad. So on this occasion, they were stopped by a Bosnian soldier, a Muslim soldier, and his companions drew away. And Claude stepped toward this man to engage him in conversation. And he asked how he was doing, and the soldier said he was fine. And then Claude asked him, "How are you sleeping?" And the man could tell that Claude had some sense of his experience, and he really began to open. And they had a beautiful, deep conversation about the experience each of them has shared within the military, and also about Claude's journey and what he was doing. And so Claude said to him, "Hey, I'll trade this mala for your gun." And the man said to him, "Oh, I'd really like those beads, but I can't give away my gun. Because if I gave away my gun, I'd be disciplined, or it's not possible." So Claude said, "Why don't you give me the bullet that's in the chamber of your gun right now, and I'll exchange my bra for that bullet." And so they made that exchange. And then Roshi Burney shares at the end of Claude's story, since we're all interdependent, nothing is small, trivial, or inconsequential. He said Claude's life was changed by that exchange, by receiving that bullet. And my life was changed by hearing his story. And Roshi Burney said, and now I'm sharing this story with you, and your life might be changed in some way. And the life of that Bosnian soldier receiving these prayer beads and making connection with a whole order of peacemakers, his life was also changed. B.J. Miller, who is a palliative care physician who directed the Zen hospice program in San Francisco, said we need to expand our capacity to feel things that we cannot change. Sorrow and pain are not the enemy. And we enter into relationship with hard feelings and not try to make them go away. Someone once asked His Holiness the Dalai Lama if he carried regret in his life. And His Holiness told the story of an experience he had with an old monk who had come to him to receive teachings on a particular practice. The Dalai Lama had told the monk that the practice was really a practice for younger monks and encouraged him to do a different practice. That monk later took his own life. And it was said he carried some sense that perhaps in a rebirth, as a young person, he might be able to connect with that practice he eagerly sought to engage. The student asked the Dalai Lama, who had expressed a sense of real regret and grief over that encounter, how he was able to let go of his feelings of regret. And His Holiness responded, you don't get rid of those feelings. You find you can hold them in your heart as part of your being human. I read recently that the origin of the word, the Proto-Indo-European word for care, is the same as lament. So to care is to hurt. So I'm going to summarize the rest of my comments. So Franco Stazeski, another Zen hospice person, acknowledges that life as a whole includes the truth of suffering and speaks about how we might come alongside others with respect and feeling a sense of life as a whole, that pain is also a part of life, not resisting pain because it's a part of our whole experience. And he offers that we can be in resonance with suffering, but not over-identified. And he encourages us to find ways of grounding, to tracking our patterns of reactivity, of how we're triggered, and find ways to be resource. He says our breath can teach us. We need to exhale. We can't just be in the suffering. We also need to be in the freedom. So an immediate way of stepping out of reactivity is to contact our breath, to breathe and be in awareness of some aspect of our sensory experience, because our sensory experience is always now. Awareness of our breath and physical sensation offers our minds a place to rest, a support to come home to ourselves in this present moment. It's a way to come out of our thoughts, to contact our feelings, really touch and allow. So how do we want to show up? We can bring a degree of consciousness and intention to our experience. We can be in some contact with our commitments. We can drop out of our heads and into our hearts and bodies. We can discover our allies. Michael Mead speaks of how we can find the rhythm of our own lives, connecting to the sacred and to the unseen. He says everyone has their own taproot and own way back into their own resilience. We're not alone, he says, in the same way that David White offers us. Ease into the conversation. Set down the weight of your aloneness. We are companioned by mentors, by allies, by trees and nature, by loved ones and friends and community. These conditions that we're facing now awaken us to this deeper truth of connection. If we didn't know this place of connection, we wouldn't long for it. We can feel our togetherness in this time of physical separation. We can feel the deeper truth of our belonging, how we belong to each other. Our completely disrupted world is offering us an opportunity to be more creative and be more intentional. It's an invitation to make a commitment to ourselves and to others, to connect, to talk about what's really going on, to create spaces of intimacy in new ways. The container of presence is a space of intimacy. It deepens belonging. Trungpa Rinpoche says the ground of fearlessness is renouncing hard-heartedness and allowing ourselves to be tender, sad, and fully present. Mark Nepo adds, my soul tells us we were all broken from the same nameless heart. And so I'd like to close my sharing today with a poem by Rilke, Widening Circles, and then a few phrases of aspiration, again from Roshi Chon. Widening circles. I live my life in widening circles that reach out across the world. I may not complete this last one, but I give myself to it. I circle endlessly around God, around the primordial tower. I've been circling for thousands of years, and I still don't know. Am I a falcon, a storm, or a great song? May I be grateful for this life. May I be grateful for all those in my life. May I be grateful for the lessons that have been given to me. And may I be grateful that I have the heart to serve. And I will pass the service now to the extinguishing of the chalice, and mention that in addition to the space, the coffee hour that's held at the conclusion of the service, then Scarlett will give instruction. If you'd like to raise your hand, then I'll be in a separate room if people would like to continue the conversation or share any reflections or comments from my talk this morning. So on to Bonnie.
Thank you, Lama Choyang. It's so interesting that we seem to schedule several months ahead when we're planning our services, and we always seem to schedule Lama Choyang for these very potent moments when we need that depth of connection to the essence. One of the most powerful ones was in 2016, the Sunday after the 2016 election of Donald Trump. And who could have predicted that? And then she was there and guided us through that day. And I'm so grateful that you are here today. So we are actually going to end the service with a wonderful upbeat song So I'm going to extinguish the chalice before we sing together. And with these parting words, we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Now let us sing together. And I want to thank Scarlett for inspiring this song from last week's wonderful experience of music that moves us. It's called "We Can Make This World a Better Place."
Freedom and justice is the melody that let us shine on. If you feel it through the music, we can make this world a better place. Freedom and justice is the melody that let us shine on. If you feel it through the music, we can make this world a better place. Live together, love forever. It's the only thing we can do. I'll be saying we're gonna make it through. Oh, yeah. Freedom and justice is the melody that let us shine on. If you feel it through the music, we can make this world a better place.
Amerikan, de man är ner på Don Ben. Asian, Européen, de man är ner på Don Ben. Salut, salam, shalom, salut, salam, shalom. Noir ou blanc, rouge et jaune. Nie pe bokiem, nie pe yale, nie bom. Nie pe bokiem, nie pe yale, nie sac. Nie pe bokiem, nie pe tomadama.
Freedom and justice is the melody that let us shine on. If you hear it through the music, we can make this world a better place. Freedom and justice is the melody that let us shine on. If you feel it through the music, we can make this world a better place. Freedom and justice is the melody that let us shine on. If you hear it through the music, we can make this world a better place.
Thank you, everyone. That was fun. I had a fun time dancing in my home. I hope you guys had a fun time dancing in your home after, just such a really soul nurturing service. It's kind of good to just get up and dance. So now we've come to the fancy coffee hour part of our portion. And just a couple things on that. So we're gonna try this out where we're gonna do a breakout room for anyone who wants to join in conversation with Lama Choyang, just have a little more of a personal conversation in there. And then anyone who wants to, pass on that, they can still be a part of our virtual chat hour to talk about knitting and all that fun stuff, sharing plants and all that good stuff. And if you have to go, that's totally fine. We really appreciate you being here in the service with us today. And we're just so lucky to have you with us. And so with that, I will give us a little stick around for our discussion coffee hour and go from here in peace, go in love. Shalom, assalamu alaikum, and blessed be. And remember, here in our quarantine times, we need to stay home and stay safe, but stay connected. So thank you very much. And if you guys want to unmute yourselves, oh, right, I was going to go over that. How do you know? How do you let me know if you want to be in the breakout room with Lama Choyang? So let me go over that. At the bottom of your screen, there is a reactions button. If you click on it, there will be a multitude of options. If you just give me one, I will put you in the room with Lama Choyang.
Well,
and if you can't figure it out, just wave your hands at me or talk to me. I'll hopefully be able to do it. So yeah, without further ado, welcome to the coffee hour, guys. And you'll all be put into break rooms when I get to you. It'll be a process, trickling in process.
I think I'm gonna just run through.
Thumbs up or something else?
Any of them. If you want to give me any of them, I will put you in that room. Just something that lets me know, like, hey, I'm here and I want to go there. You guys can talk.
They're all tongue-tied.
Well, it's wonderful to see everyone. And I see people from different parts of my life and community. Welcome to friends from Piedmont Gardens and friends from my Sangha and my family and my community here in Humboldt in the beautiful Unitarian Fellowship. I'm always just so privileged to join all of you and grateful for your invitations and feel very much a part of your community. So thank you.
All right, I'm opening up the breakout rooms. So far, I only have a couple people in there. So if you keep your hands raised, then I can put you in there. Cool. Ruth, you want to go in there?
Oh, I don't think it is. Yeah. I thought it was Michelle.
Was driving through downtown McKinleyville and saw Church of the Open Heart or something was meeting in chairs at a distance outside. And I thought that was not too bad. In August, it's possible maybe for the kids, it's too tempting to get close. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm really worried about the going back to school thing and the virtual whatever, eating outside and stuff like that. Because I think we're gonna have another burst.
I noticed the HumboldtGov.org website is much more sophisticated. Now they have green, yellow, orange, and red alert state, just like after 9/11, and we're in orange.
Yeah, I think it's very helpful. If you haven't been on that site, it's extremely helpful to see where we are in terms of everybody else and in terms of precautions. I really recommend that site for me personally.
What is it called again, Jenny?
It's the same one I tried to get you on before, Sina.
Oh, I've been on.
It's an endless process to me. Maybe somebody's got a quick way of getting there and getting yourself on. I get this on email on a regular basis. So I know how many cases, and I can also hear Frankovich talking about what we need to be dealing with. And there's another piece in there that gives you what Bruce is talking about, which is the
alert
where
level
we are in terms of hospitalizations, discharges, and what the curve looks like. The combination of the two things keeps us here, right here, really alerted to what we personally need to be doing in this community. And that feels to me to be really helpful. So if somebody's got the right way to get there, I've tried to tell people how to do it, and I did it, but I'm not so savvy. Sorry, Colleen, I'll shut up.
HumboldtGov.
You're not on.
HumboldtGov.org.
Scarlett, are we in Lama's chat room?
No, did you want to be?
That's where I want to be.
Cool, thank you. I'll put you in there, Colleen.
Thank you.
There you go.
So
And
does Michael Gargan.
want to go in there. Cool. I will put you in there. Anybody else want to go into the other breakout room? Cool. Fabulous. Oh, no, L'Oreal did. Okay, I'll put you in, L'Oreal.
I'd like to tell everybody Redwood Acres is again open for free COVID tests, and they don't dig into your brain like my daughter warned. It was very.
What do they do, Sina?
Well, they take a long swab and they run it around both your nostrils. There was only one guy there when I was doing it, and I was kidding around with him. I said, "Are you going to dig into my brain?" He said, "No, I'll quit whenever you want." And I think I waited about a half an hour. There were 3 people ahead of me. And when I came out, there were about 6 people behind me. And it only took about a half an hour total. And I got the results in 3 days. When they send you the results, you have to go through this weird process of putting in your number and your name, and they ask you what nationality you are and blah, 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 blah. But they finally tell you that you're okay.
Yeah, take it out. Okay. You're not on, Jenny.
Hi, all.
I've had 2 tests now with that same process. What you have